in one of the driest states in America, a place where people are fined for watering lawns or washing cars, where wildfires rage every year and entire towns fear running out of water. Private companies are pumping millions of gallons of groundwater and paying only $524 per year for it. Before we dive deeper into this investigation, if you appreciate independent reporting like this, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support makes this content possible. Now, let's rewind. Back in 1909, a small company called Arrowhead Hot Springs was founded. Nestled near the San Bernardino Mountains in Southern California, an area long celebrated for its pure, healing mountain waters. The company began bottling spring water on a small scale using a federal special use permit, which allowed them to lay pipes and operate on public land, but imposed no fees for how much water they extracted. At the time, the volume was minimal, just a few thousand gallons a year. But over the decades, water became more than a basic need. It became a luxury product. By the 1950s, Arrowhead had become a symbol of refinement. Its bottles served in high-end hotels and elite restaurants across LA and San Diego. Then came the 1980s. French company Perrier acquired Arrowhead. And with new industrial pumping systems, production skyrocketed into the millions of gallons annually. In 1992, Swiss giant Nestlé acquired Perrier, gaining ownership of the Arrowhead brand. And with it, access to a vital water source in Strawberry Creek. Nestlé began extracting massive amounts of water from U.S. federal forest lands, still operating under a permit first issued in 1978, a permit with no cap on water volume and no per gallon fees. All that for just $524 a year. Meanwhile, Nestlé made enormous profits selling bottled water, while paying next to nothing for the water itself. Between 2011 and 2017, California faced one of its worst droughts on record. The state imposed strict household water limits, no pool filling, limited lawn watering, and fines for going over quota. But at the same time, Nestlé trucks were leaving the forest daily, loaded with bottles sold for $2 each in stores, while average Californians were penalized for washing their cars or watering their gardens. Public anger started boiling over. In 2015, protests erupted in front of Nestlé facilities. Online campaigns spread under the hashtag Nestlé steals water, and posters read, "Our water is not for sale." In 2017, the California Water Board launched an official investigation. Its report stated, Nestlé is extracting far more water than the Strawberry Creek ecosystem can sustainably support, potentially threatening spring flows and nearby wildlife. But Nestlé pushed back. They argued they were operating under a valid, existing permit and provided multiple justifications. They weren't using municipal drinking water, but a renewable spring. Their pumping was monitored and approved by environmental authorities. Their share of California's water use was tiny. Their operations created jobs, supported local economies, and paid taxes. In a formal statement, Nestlé said, "We do not take water for free. We pay taxes, create employment, and operate with sustainability in mind." Despite the mounting concerns, Nestlé federal nor state authorities took decisive legal action. The federal government did not revoke the decades-old permit. It was signed in 1978, and no clear legal framework existed to limit the volume extracted. The state of California, despite its strict environmental laws, was powerless to intervene, because the land was under federal jurisdiction beyond the reach of state law. So, was this inaction a failure or a deliberate choice? Nestlé wasn't exactly breaking the law. They were operating under a valid federal agreement. They weren't tapping into public water systems. They provided jobs in rural areas, and the environmental damage wasn't immediately catastrophic. From a bureaucratic standpoint, there was no urgent reason to intervene. Some officials may have even believed that an active tax-paying factory was better than an empty forest. Here's the core issue. Under U.S. law, selling bottled spring water is legal, even from public lands. as long as you have a valid permit, even an outdated one. That's why there was no sweeping government crackdown. The battle played out mostly in public opinion, not in courtrooms. But let's be clear. Nestlé did not cause California's drought. The drought was the result of long-term climate shifts, declining snowpack in the Sierra Nevadas, prolonged heat waves, years of below-average rainfall, and chronic mismanagement of water resources. In truth, agriculture alone consumes over 80% of California's fresh water. Nestlé annual use: just 58 million gallons, or 0.001% of the state's total consumption. So, the outrage wasn't really about the numbers. It was about timing and optics. A multinational corporation extracting pristine water from a drought-stricken forest, bottling it, and selling it at premium prices, while everyday citizens were told to do more with less. In March 2021, Nestlé announced it was exiting the bottled water business in the US and Canada, selling all operations, including the Arrowhead brand, to a new company called BlueTriton Brands, in a deal worth $4.3 billion. But the story didn't end there. BlueTriton inherited everything: the same water source, the same pipelines, the same old federal permit, and the same extraction practices. The difference: BlueTriton isn't a global food brand. It doesn't sell directly to consumers. And it doesn't have a high-profile image to protect. In its first statement, BlueTriton said, "We believe water is a precious natural resource. We remain committed to responsible operations and long-term sustainability. But to this day, there's no evidence that much has changed. No published data showing reduced extraction. No new fees on the gallons being pumped. Just like before, the company pays a small fee to use the land, but nothing for the water itself." And that brings us to the final question. If there's a remote forest with underground springs no one else is using, and a private company comes in, builds a factory, creates jobs, pays taxes, and uses the resource legally, is that exploitation or smart investment? The law allows it, but the debate rages on. What do you think? Was Nestlé rightfully criticized? Should companies pay for every drop they take from the earth? Or is this a fair deal that brings value to unused land? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe in supporting neutral, independent investigations. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.